ask you about this. So you say it's not a shakeup, but you guys are down, and it makes sense that there would.
Says
polls,
who?
Most of them, all of them.
Says who?
Polls. I just told you. I answered your question.
Okay. Which polls?
All of them.
Okay.
Never forget.
All of them.
That's one of my favorite pieces of television. It's so
I know. I'm Sarah Gonzalez. Welcome to the news and why it matters. Does that guy up there that we just played have anything to do with your top story?
Yes, he does. That is the top story.
Okay.
Agreed.
Okay.
Going all day.
Pat?
I'm going to go a different direction.
Oh, my God.
Contrarian.
Yeah, I'm going to be a contrarian. Everybody else thinks the top story is. I think the top story is everybody else's bottom story.
Okay. Doc?
Okay, he just scared me, so I'm going to go Michael Cohen.
Okay, I heard you talk a lot about attorney-client privilege.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I've had an ongoing conversation with Mike Lee for a long time about Hillary Clinton, and I am a lock them up, prosecute them. I don't care when they get out of office. Prosecute them, put behind bars. They did wrong. I'd be behind bars. You'd be behind bars. He said, I've had this conversation, this argument with, I think Clarence Thomas is who he told me, for years. And he said, I've always been on your side. He said, but I actually think that the answer should be, no, don't lock them up. And I said, how can you be for no rule of law? He said, it's banana republics. He said, there's a line that when you have somebody who's in power, and if they're corrupt, you grab them and you put them in jail. Now that's good for America once. But once you set that precedent in all other countries, it becomes a banana republic. And the other side says, oh yeah? Wait until your guy gets in. And so then you're constantly putting each other into prison. And he said, I don't think there's a way to avoid that. And I worry that this may be the gateway to it, that this whole investigation may be the gateway to a banana republic.
Do you find it interesting that we still don't know exactly what what they found or what their angle is? I mean, it's just kind of like a free-for-all at this point.
They mentioned today there's a couple angles. They're looking for payouts to women, and the other thing they're looking into is his taxi medallion business.
Yeah.
Which I didn't realize he was an attorney and a purveyor of taxi medallions.
A taxi medallionist.
That's okay. So that's what, the registration that taxi drivers get?
Yeah, but that's
a little medallion.
Yeah, you put a
in
big,
New York.
Yeah, you put a big thing. It's a badge on the hood of your car, and it costs, I don't even remember, $250,000.
Yeah,
and that's your license to be a cab driver.
It's a pretty good gig to sell those things. I guess.
Yeah, and it was good until Uber and Lyft came around,
and
so he's obviously lost a lot of money in that. They think there might be some corruption in there.
In the New York cab business?
It's shocking.
No.
Of course, it's still very early on, right? It happened yesterday, right?
But it better be something big. I mean, you can't go after the president's personal attorney.
Can you get any bigger than taxi medallions? I don't know.
Well, there are the income tax evasions with Al Capone.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
It's true. I mean, one of the interesting parts about this is Michael Cohen operated not only as the president's personal attorney, but also as a counsel for the company. So, and also an executive for the company. So when, obviously, if everything that a lawyer did was attorney-client privilege, everyone would just hire lawyers for all their executive roles and no one would ever have to say anything. Everything would be protected. So there's a split role here, and it's depending on whether he is operating as an executive for the company or if he's operating as the attorney. One of the interesting parts about this is he keeps saying that all of these actions he took there was no information given to Donald Trump, and the money didn't come from Donald Trump.
Therefore, he was not his attorney.
If you are acting and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on your own accord, are you working for the person who you're their attorney? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. He would have to be aware of large sums of money like that. So their defense is starting to get them in trouble a little bit.
What do you think of the CNN had the headline about this? The FBI just proved Donald Trump wrong on attorney-client privilege.
Well, I mean, when it comes to attorney-client privilege, the president is wrong. It's not dead. There is a difference, and I laid it out on the chalkboard about 20 minutes ago, that if you are the accused and Doc is my attorney, anything that we talk about, because I've hired him, anything that we talk about is privileged. Right. However, if he's accused, what we talk about is not privileged.
Right.
And if we are colluding with one another to commit a crime, it's not.
But
so
the only things that pertain to that, if I still represented you with other stuff that is not covered on this, that is separate.
Correct. And that's why they sent in 2 teams yesterday. Now, the question is, do we believe it?
Right.
There's a clean team and a dirty team. The clean team are Mueller's people and the district, the Southern District of New York attorneys. That's the clean team. They're prosecuting something. The judge gives this warrant, says you can get these things. The dirty team comes in completely disconnected from all of that. And they're only looking for those things. They cannot pass anything else on.
And I've read that if the crime fraud exception is what they used to convince a judge to sign off on this, it's got to be something explosive, like we were talking about earlier. What happens to the faith in, the authorities if this turns out to not be something
What happens
huge?
to the faith in the authorities, even if it does turn out to be something huge? I think America is set. America, half of them, doesn't matter. Donald Trump could rip the skin off like in Mission Impossible and be like, guys, I'm actually Jesus. And half the country would be against him. He could rip the mask off and he could be Freddy Krueger and half of the country would defend him. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Stu, you were talking a little bit about Michael Cohen's character.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we need to remember in all of this is that Michael Cohen is a terrible human being. He is not a good guy. He's one of these guys that's been around Trump for a very long time, and it's somebody that Trump likes. He likes the fact that Cohen can be the bad guy and he can be the good guy. They play the good cop, bad cop thing quite a bit, and they have for many, many years. Cohen, we talked about this at the very beginning. There's plenty of things that we got wrong on this election. For example, that Donald Trump would be elected. And honestly, like that he's actually been better on policy than I thought he was going to be.
A lot better.
On the other side of that, the people that we identified as the real problems around him, people like Flynn, Bannon, Cohen, Manafort, all those people that we identified very early on as real problems have turned out to be real problems in almost every case identified by Donald Trump as real problems. And this may be where this Cohen thing ends. One of the things that you think about when you think about Michael Cohen is his interactions with the press. He's, you saw one of them as we started the show, which was just bizarre. But there was another case in which Ivana Trump, his ex-wife, accused him of rape, said that Donald Trump had raped her back in the day. Later on, she backed off of that claim and said, I didn't mean real rape, I meant emotional rape or something like that. But the point was it was still brought back up, of course, during the election. His ex-wife said that she was raped by him. So the Daily Beast is writing a story about this and tries to get comment from the Trump organization. Michael,
beware. This is a story where you have both parties are despicable, and you're not sure if you're rooting for either one of them.
Daily Beast versus Michael Cohen. Who to root for? So Cohen calls up, and a lot of people focus on what he said to the reporter, which is if you write a story with rape in the headline and my client, I will make your life a living hell. The things I will do to you are effing disgusting. Really strange commentary. And is this guy actually a lawyer? Who handles themselves this way? But that's the way it worked very well in the real estate business of New York for many, many years. The part that I thought was interesting, though, is at one point he claims to the Daily Beast reporter that you cannot rape your spouse. Now, step back from what a abhorrent concept that is. I mean, the idea that because you put on a wedding ring, you lose all rights to your body, that you can be assaulted at will by your husband and can have no legal recourse. The idea that you would want to...
I'm willing.
The idea that you would want to associate your client on the record with that legal defense it shows how incompetent you are. Yeah. But beyond that, it had also been overturned over 3 decades earlier in the state of New York. So here's a guy practicing law in the state of New York who doesn't know what the laws are in the state of New York. I think the real vulnerability for Trump here is not just that people are talking about, will he be loyal? Will he turn on Trump? I don't think that's going to happen at all. Never. He's just not that good of an attorney. And the fact that he's been this erratic and was doing that under that microscope indicates he has not protected his client over several decades, and that's where the vulnerability could be.
Can I ask you guys a question? Is there anything that could be found out in this, he's paid off 100 women, and Trump knew about all of it, or whatever. Yeah. Is there anything that could be found out in this that will make the American people, half of the American people, say, okay, because I don't think there is.
I mean, say what? Which side of that?
Like, are you talking about just more affairs?
Yeah, anything that comes out in this, unless it's murder,
right?
I can't. I can't.
No, I don't think. No matter on either side, and that was my frustration. I know we've gotten to this point and we've accepted it, but it still frustrated me. Most of the comments, like Maxine Waters' comments, were just confirming what she's already said. She's using this story to say, yes, he needs to be impeached.
CNN ran a headline this morning at 6 o'clock that said, is it too early for the Democrats to call for impeachment?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. We don't even know what the investigation says.
Right. Right. We don't know very much about this, and yet it's still, let me go ahead and use this sensational headline and story if in one camp or the other, because Mike Huckabee wasn't much better. He's like Fourth Amendment and Fifth Amendment. Okay, Mike, how about you, former minister, saying, oh, yeah, he diddled a porn star when he was married?
Oh, they don't care.
Okay, you see what I'm saying there? Yes. It's just...
diddled a porn star.
That might be a first here.
It's the title of tonight's episode, Diddled a Porn Star.
Yeah. But I wonder if you can actually break out of that. Because if we don't break out of that, what does that mean? It's kind of like the Banana Republic. Yeah. What does it mean if we can't break out into fact territory and into things that are principle based?
I think right now we're a plantain republic, and we're on the way to banana. I think that's where we are. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We will take a break and get back to Pat's top secret story when we come back.
Wow, that's a record. We've only got through 2 people.
Pat, tell us about your top story.
Well, this, to me, this kind of ties in with the Trump stuff. This is another does it matter to anybody story. Check out this. There's a discussion at a school board meeting, and they get one of the parents, one of the people in the community. This is in Katy, Texas, where I actually lived for 8 years. But he gets up and they're tackling bullying in the school system, and here's the guy's testimony.
My name is Greg Barrett. I graduated from KSD in 1983. I started in 1975 with Mr. Lance. My legal name is Greg Gay. I was bullied, unbelievably bullied. I started out and I had teachers that bullied me. I had kids that bullied me. Even the coaches. I had nobody to turn to. One day at lunch, I had my head shoved in the urinal where it busted my lip. I had laid on the ground in a fetal position as the kids kicked me. I got up, I rinsed my face off, I walked out of the lunchroom, walked straight to the principal's office, and he told me, these kids will grow up someday. They won't always be like this. But yet, here I am, covered in urine from laying on the ground underneath the urinal. My lip was busted, and they sent me home. Well, I went home, and I got the .45 out of my father's drawer and put it in my mouth. Because at this point, I had nobody in the school system to help me. Is that the way this is going to be? Lance, you were the one that shoved my head in the urinal.
Yeah. Lance just happens to be the superintendent of public schools at Katy ISD, making $375,000 a year, the highest paid administrator in the state of Texas. And here was his response.
While I understand the perception, please know my reaction this past Monday night was one of shock. It wasn't one of disrespect or insensitivity. I was purely shocked. To the hometown that raised me and where I now proudly serve, I regret the negative attention that's been brought to this community in the past week. Ultimately, I'll be judged by one person.
Yes.
And that is God, my Lord and Savior. That's who will judge me.
Okay, unfortunately, that has nothing to do with the situation at hand. Nobody's talking about your ultimate judgment here.
Yeah.
Nobody.
And I do want to point out, we did cover this, I think it was when you were gone, last week, but there's an update to the story.
There is an update.
I just wanted to see Glenn's reaction, because that was ours, too. Something missing here.
Pretty amazing,
missing
right?
here. I was honestly, I mean, the world is so upside down, but I knew it couldn't have been this because I would have read about it. I wouldn't have been surprised if he would have done, boom, himself. I mean,
So I'm thinking apology.
Right, apology.
Yes. Yeah. No, he denies it. There's two witnesses that have come forward. One is a circuit judge in Alabama now, and he said it absolutely happened. This guy was a bully all through junior high and high school. In fact, he used to throw 25-pound weights at teammates. This is a guy who also was racing through a neighborhood after a drug and alcohol party with his girlfriend, taking her home, and a man who had just gotten home from dinner with his wife got out and yelled, "Hey, slow down!" He slammed on the brakes, backed up, beat the guy into a coma, cracked his skull, broke his ribs. Now,
at 18 years old.
At 18 years old. So the kid.
Isn't that on his record?
I don't know. I actually don't know, but they are fully behind him on the Katy ISD school board, even though there's not one but two witnesses now. And another guy came forward, Christopher Dolan, and said he actually witnessed the event.
See, but that's all fine if you're young, but where's the apology?
Where's the apology?
So if you say, this is the thing we keep missing as society.
Yeah.
If he would have said, I was horrified. I did it. I haven't, honestly, when you stood up and I heard your real name, I remembered, and I felt horrible, horrified, and I apologize. I did lots of things, but I've changed. Then I can support you and forgive you.
Absolutely.
But not
Right.
Second chances come after you repent.
Exactly.
And apologize.
Yeah.
And the point of what he's apologizing for is just the negative
attention to Katy
on the community. Like, I mean, do you...
So blaming...
Sorry that this guy spoke up.
People have lost their jobs for a word they said in jest 40 years prior to that.
But this is backlash from Me Too. I think this is backlash where people will dig their heels in and go, you know what? I'm tired of everybody losing their job because they did something in the past. Again, you have to base it on principles.
Speaking of the Me Too movement, Molly Ringwald came out and did an op-ed.
Yeah, so Molly, she wrote an op-ed for the New York Times and said...
Very introspective.
Right. After the Me Too thing, she said she flashed back to a couple years ago where she had watched The Breakfast Club with her daughter and realized that there were a lot of themes in that probably led to the Me Too, problem that we have trained people to act that way. Boys are, painted one-dimensionally and they just want sex and they're given a pass when they act inappropriately because of the one scene where Judd Nelson ends up under the table to hide from the principal and she's there and she has a skirt on and he sees her panties. And because of that, she was, just horrified and we have to change everything.
Well, she also said in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which...
the Phoebe Cates scene?
Yes, and she said it got closer to an authentic depiction of adolescence, but it still made room for a young male's fantasy. Phoebe Cates striding topless in a soft, porny sprinkler mist.
It's amazing.
Isn't that an authentic description of an adolescent?
Never had to go back to a Frank Capra movie or a Jimmy Stewart movie, because people didn't put that stuff on film. They were smarter than that, and we had higher standards.
So one of the things she mentions in it, if you remember in 16 Candles, I think it was, where another girl gets really drunk and the boy of Molly Ringwald's desires ditches her. She goes, gets plowed, ends up in a car, wakes up with a nerdy kid, and they apparently had
slept.
Yeah, slept, right. And she contacted that girl, and she goes, let's have drinks, let's have dinner. And she said, aren't you mortified when you think about this? And she goes, no, because the character made bad choices. She got drunked up at this party and passed out. Now, it's not right, but she shouldn't have done it. So then they exchanged some more emails, and she goes, after I've thought about this, Molly, I am even more convinced you're wrong about this. Because the boy in the film says I could have violated her 17 ways and didn't, chose to leave her alone.
I got to tell you, I think the electric chair for Al Pacino, and you know what, and for all of anybody who was ever in The Godfather or any kind of mob movie, all of them.
Because they're responsible for the actions of their
the characters. I mean, don't they ever look back and go, man, I feel really bad. I killed that guy.
One other interesting note: she was mortified watching with her 10-year-old daughter.
10-year-old daughter. She let her watch it.
Wow, that's pretty young for that movie.
Yeah, maybe you shouldn't have watched.
Yeah, maybe that at 10 could be,
I mean, I will say at least she's acknowledging that Hollywood should call themselves out for the same things that they're calling other people out for.
At least that part.
I mean, let's give her credit for that, maybe. All right, we have got some viewer questions to come when we return. Every day we like to try to get to your questions, so remember to tweet us. I do. I have to. The caveat: we try. So remember to tweet us using the hashtag #TheBlazeWhy. Ashley wants to know, Trump wants to repeal parts of the spending bill. Why not let the public pay for special interests with a government crowdfunding site? Let us divert our tax money to things we want to support.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll never visit that site, but I like that.
John wants someone to address the Deerfield gun ban.
This is Deerfield right outside Chicago?
Yeah.
Oh, they banned assault weapons, right?
Totally unconstitutional.
Yeah, he said it violates
unconstitutional.
Amendments 2, 4, and 10 at a minimum.
Yeah, we had a friend that lives in that city, and Kyle was like, I have no idea how to handle this. And I said, leave the city.
Yeah. I mean, they're asking for people to turn in their guns.
Right.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Isn't it sad that they're forced to do that, though?
Well, it is, but I mean, you're going to be around people like this. It's never going to stop.
Yeah. Okay, Jay wants to know, does the new condom snorting challenge help prevent sinus infections? Are you?
Yeah, I'm not into the craze necessarily. Only if you take it with Sudafed. If some Sudafed is in the condom when you snort it, then yes.
And you want to take the nighttime ones too. The daytime ones.
I cannot believe this is our life and our country. I can't believe it.
We're out of time. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Co-branded NyQuil. That's the.